Overcoming the hype and fan mentality. Look, when you're competing in sports, you have to choose. Are you a participant or are you a spectator? And a lot of times athletes get this wrong. They approach sports like a spectator. Why? Because they were trained to think like spectators. In our society, we spend a lot of time, the media spends a lot of time talking about records, rankings, seedings, predictions. It's all over social media, on Twitter, on Instagram. We see all the storylines. We see the predictions. We see what other people are saying about us. So our mind starts to get involved in that hype that we call it. You can't get involved in the hype. You can't approach the sport like a spectator. Okay? You look at Hollywood movies. The coach gives this big rah-rah pep talk, football game, any given Sunday, the movie Miracle. Before the big competition, the coach gives this big pep talk. The team gets real excited. They run out there and then they win. But when you look at it in real life, it's often an opposite result. We've seen more pep talks and more motivational speeches hurt the athletes than help them when it's done right before a competition. Why? Because that's getting sucked into the hype. That's making it into a big deal. As athletes, we want to treat all competitions the same. Everything's important, but nothing's special. And stay away from the records, the rankings, the seedings, predictions. Perfect example of this. Back in college, our team was at the national duels, and we had a bye this one round. Our team had a bye, and then the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country were competing against each other at this time. We wanted to watch that match that was going on because they were the 2 top teams in the country. See, we were getting involved in the hype. And our coach came over to us, who was an Olympic silver medalist and a world champion in his own right, and he coached the Olympic team, and he knew better than this. He told us, men, we're not spectators here, we're participants. Instead of watching that match, we're going to go in the back room and we're going to recover. And we were aggravated at the time because we wanted to watch these 2 teams compete. But our mind was in the fan mentality, this fan mindset, and our coach was thinking more like a spectator. So we needed to learn from him there. So we all get caught up in the fan mentality and the hype at some point in time. I want you to now take a moment and think about different ways where you get involved in the hype, ways that you get involved in the fan mentality. Is it looking at box scores, looking at the results in the newspaper? Is it going on the internet and seeing what people are ranked, seeing what the predictions are, seeing what people are saying about you? It could be your own social media pages where people are commenting and then they're telling you about their expectations for you. Whatever it might be, take a moment, think about it, write it down, and then come on back. Okay, now that we're back, now that we've identified the different forms of fan mentality, we want to write down on exercise 2, what are some corrections to this fan mentality where we're now going to start viewing the sport as a participant rather than a spectator. So I'll give some of my own personal examples. I'd wake up in the morning, I'd look at the box scores. Okay, the kid that I competed against, he went against this person and he lost to him and I beat this guy, and I would play these mental gymnastics in my head. So instead of looking at the box scores in the morning, I need a replacement behavior. So instead of looking at the box scores, instead I'm going to read the comic section, whatever, right? The point is this, you can't just eliminate a behavior, you have to replace it with a new behavior. Otherwise your mind is going to want to do that old behavior. If your normal morning routine is you're looking up the records, the rankings, the predictions on an internet website, well, instead of going on that website, on autopilot, I go to that website of the rankings. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a different website in the morning while I'm eating my breakfast, whatever that might be. So have a replacement behavior for any of those, that hype, that fan mentality that you were engaging in the past. And as you replace those behaviors, you're going to find you start to think more like a spectator and not a participant. I'll leave you with one final example. LeBron James, during the playoffs, in the NBA playoffs, he would sometimes catch himself getting caught up in what people were saying about him and the different storylines. He instituted what's called a blackout, what he calls a blackout. No social media, turning off his phone during the playoffs. So he doesn't hear what other people are saying about him. And I remember hearing in an interview, they asked him, LeBron, your former coach said this about you. What did you think about that? And he said, I wasn't even aware that the coach said that about me, because he wasn't on social media during the playoffs. So that was his way of handling the hype. So you need to think, what are the behaviors that you engage in that get you involved in this hype and fan mentality, and new behaviors, corrections to make you think more like a spectator. Mindset makes the difference.